In today's NBA, which was basically built for scoring explosions, the 2025 OKC Thunder have played defense like we were back in the 90s. Just look at the numbers. Last season, the Thunder put up an NBA best 106.6 defensive rating, while the second best defensive team, the Orlando Magic, put up a 109.1 defensive rating. Notably, that minus 2.5 point difference is actually the biggest gap between the number 1 and the number 2 ranked defense in a season that the NBA has seen over the last 25 years. In addition, the 2025 Thunder also limited their opponents to a 51.3 effective field goal percentage, while the league average effective field goal percentage allowed by teams last season was 55.1%. Again, that minus 3.8 point difference relative to league average is also the largest ever recorded by any team in a season in NBA history. And why does this even matter? Well, because in today's NBA, when top offensive teams typically utilize spread pick and roll, mismatch hunting, and positionless lineups to score, OKC successfully countered with their switchability, IQ, and aggression on the defensive end. Basically, the 2025 OKC Thunder found a way to slow down modern NBA offenses when defense seemed to be an afterthought. But more than this simply being a show of one team's success, what OKC built could also potentially be a preview of how NBA teams are going to be playing defense over the next couple decades. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and in this video, let's break down what schemes and principles fueled OKC's all-time great defense, how OKC's roster construction enabled the team to maximize this kind of defensive system, and lastly, what could the rest of the NBA actually learn from the Thunder's defensive blueprint heading into the near future. First, let's talk about the general foundations of OKC's defensive success. Well, there are mainly two things that usually determine the success of modern NBA defenses. First, there's a team's ability to implement ball screen coverages, or how well they can guard a pick and roll or different actions that involve a screener and a ball handler. And second, there's a team's ability to play shell defense, or how well a team's off-ball defenders help and rotate during ISOs and drives, and also how well they can defend screens away from the ball. Though what set OKC apart from other defenses was that they didn't just hold up in both those areas, but they actually took control of each one. At the core of OKC's defense was a simple, ruthless idea, and that was to deny the offense comfort at every level. And the Thunder did that in a variety of ways depending on the situation. First, they picked up ball handlers, often 30 feet away from the basket. They also switched, trapped, and fought through ball screen actions like it was second nature. In addition to their help defenders also always being one step ahead to mitigate any advantage created by opponents. And lastly, when things broke down and when they were forced to switch, every Thunder player on the floor also guarded 1 through 5 in space comfortably. So, breaking those down, let's first dive into how OKC uses pressure as a defensive commodity. When needed, the Thunder pick up opposing ball handlers near half-court while applying pressure very early. This high pickup point causes teams to either initiate offense from uncomfortable spots, waste time on the shot clock, or speed up while being thrown off their timing before they can even run a play. But what really makes OKC's pressure defense so good is that even if offenses are able to get past their first line of pressure, the Thunder aren't really exposed, and that is because their help defense is also often already rotating behind the initial action. Basically, the Thunder's pressure defense is so elite in the sense that it doesn't really allow any breakdowns. It just forces offenses into an endless cycle of resets until the clock runs out in a possession. In this play, you can see Dort picking up Haliburton right at half court. This high pickup point forces Siakam to set the ball screen for Haliburton really high on the floor, which the Thunder counter with a switch from J-Dub. At this point, you can see how OKC's tight pick and roll coverage and how the seamless switch by Dort immediately kills Indiana's initial action, forcing Haliburton to just reset the offense in the perimeter. Though in this reset, Mathurin again has no passing outlet, so he just returns the ball to Haliburton. But with him basically being pushed back by Dort 10 feet away from the three-point line, Haliburton has no choice but to let Siakam operate from the wing. However, with only 7 seconds left on the clock, Siakam is now at the mercy of J-Dub's defense. Siakam tries to attack the paint, but the slight rotation from iHeart forces Siakam to just back down and to just launch a last-second jumper, although you can see J-Dub with a tight contest which forces the missed shot. In this possession, you can see Cason Wallace picking up Norman Powell even before he crosses half court. This triggers the high ball screen from Dunn, which then forces Aaron Wiggins into the switch. But as you can see, with only 6 seconds left in the clock, J-Dub makes the smart decision of coming over from the weak side to make the soft trap. This pressures Powell to drive, but as he attacks, you can just see how OKC makes life hard for him. Wiggins stays with him on the ball, Dort makes a stunt from the corner to add more pressure, and finally, Shai rushes inside to act as the last line of defense, forcing Powell into the wild shot attempt. But moving on, let's talk about what is arguably the backbone of the Thunder's defensive system, and that is their shell defense in the half-court. Well, the idea behind OKC's shell defense is simple, and that is, no Thunder player should ever defend alone on the floor. This means the Thunder make sure that whenever an opposing ball handler is in a scoring position, that guy isn't just seeing one Thunder defender, but is also feeling pressure from multiple guys, with OKC's off-ball defenders constantly digging into gaps and rotating like clockwork. To keep their shell defense intact, the Thunder mainly uses two actions. First, they use pre-rotations, wherein help defenders load up to a ball handler during a drive with the purpose of shrinking the ball handler's space early. And second, the Thunder also use peel switches to mitigate advantages in the half-court, wherein a help defender takes the ball handler while the initial defender recovers to the next man. Although, even if teams are somehow able to break through the first layer of OKC shell defense, the thing is, they still have elite rim protection waiting in the paint with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, two big men who are both capable of playing aggressively even on the perimeter. As a result of their unbreakable shell defense, last season, the Thunder ranked first in isolation defense, first in fewest shot attempts allowed at the rim per game, second in field goal percentage allowed at the rim per game, and again, first in deflections per game in the entire NBA. Basically, the Thunder proved that they are the toughest team to score against one-on-one, they're also the hardest to get up against at the rim, and they're also the most disruptive team to pass against. In this possession, you can see the Cavs trying to run a side handoff play between Allen and Garland, but Cason Wallace successfully denies the action. So they run their next action with Dean Wade setting a pin down to get Mobley switch on Shai on the high post. Mobley successfully gets the mismatch and tries to maneuver against Shai, but then here, instead of guarding his man, J-Dub loads up into the paint to provide help. And this is possible because OKC trusts Dort to zone up against two guys on the weak side. As a result, three OKC players wall off the paint, Mobley has no space to operate, and J-Dub takes advantage by forcing Mobley into a loose ball situation, which eventually gives the Thunder possession. In this play, you can see Cason Wallace and Hart defending Chicago's ball screen action with a drop, but just right behind, you can see Caruso loading up on the play to shrink the space for Kobe White. White's easiest option is to make the pass to Giddey on the wing, so Caruso immediately closes out. Giddey is able to blow by, but watch J-Dub immediately peel, while Wallace also fills up the middle gap to limit Giddey's options. Now with the shot clock running out, Giddey has no choice but to launch a rushed and comfortable fadeaway jumper right on top of J-Dub, which ends up in a miss. Another crucial component of OKC's defense is their ability to fight through ball screens and how they're able to use that to erase offense before it even starts. While modern offenses are built to create advantages usually by using ball screens to either force a rotation, to open up a shot, or to create a mismatch. But against OKC, those ball screens barely work because the Thunder's guards and wings fight through every screen while also recovering instantly. Whether that be on-ball, off-ball flares, or pin-down screens, it doesn't matter as Thunder defenders are gonna stay attached to ball handlers and are gonna chase them off any action. Which is why it's not surprising that last season, the Thunder led the NBA in contested jumpers per game while also allowing the lowest opponent shooting percentage on catch-and-shoot threes. Basically, opponents just can't run their usual ball screen actions and expect success against this OKC team, as the ability of the Thunder's guards and wings to navigate screens just takes away such a heavy part of most opponents' diet of efficient shots, all of which eventually ties up with OKC's ball screen versatility and how they're able to comfortably guard all sorts of ball screen actions. Well, the pick and roll is the most commonly used play in today's NBA, and most teams have a go-to coverage when guarding it, whether it's drop, hedge, or switch. But the thing is, this OKC team can run all of those coverages depending on the matchup, and they can also run each one at such a high level because their roster personnel simply allows them to have no bad options. Against pick and roll actions, the Thunder can play drop because they have unscreenable guards like Caruso, Dort, and Wallace who can fight through contact together with all that rim protection behind them. They can also hedge because they have bigs who can move in space, plus wings who can rotate quickly and who can blow up passes. And they can also switch because every Thunder player on the floor is simply capable of guarding 1 through 5. As a result of that ball screen versatility, OKC has limited opponents to just .88 points scored per pick and roll possession last season, which was the lowest mark in the entire NBA. In this possession, you can see how the Thunder guards a Jokic and Murray pick and roll. Jokic is able to pin Dort on the ball screen, so as Dort recovers, the Thunder are forced to play a momentary drop. But with Jokic left alone behind the arc, Dort needs to get back and guard him, which makes this a full-on switch by iHart on Jamal Murray. This is supposed to be a mismatch, but just watch how iHart effectively moves his feet, shadowing Murray in space until he forces him into a roughly contested jumper at the end of the shot clock. This time, you can see Obi Toppin and Halliburton running a side ball screen play. Instead of dropping, Chet Holmgren chooses to blitz on the ball, which allows Toppin to slide right into the short roll. This looks like an open lane for Toppin, but watch Shai from the corners making a quick rotation into the paint as he provides rim protection with a well-timed block right at the rim. But as you can already see at this point, the part that makes everything work for OKC defensively, which most teams will not be able to replicate, is the Thunder's roster itself and how it really has no weak links. Last season, the Thunder had 12 players on their roster who were in the top 50 defenders list in terms of individual defensive rating. And for context, the Orlando Magic, the team with the second most players on that top 50 list, only had 6. Sure, Lou Dort and J-Dub are headliners because of the fact that they made all defensive teams last season, but OKC's defense isn't built on stars. Instead, it's built on standards that everyone on the team needs to meet. All Thunder players possess plus positional length and strength, elite screen navigation, quick hands and quicker feet, and most importantly, everyone in the roster needs to buy in with the team's defensive principles. Basically, OKC thrives with that defensive blueprint because they have the type of players in the roster that are tough and versatile enough to make such a unique system work. To sum it all up, in the modern NBA wherein offense is built around either isolation and mismatch hunting or advantage creation through screens and movement, OKC's defense was able to shut both down. Teams can't ISO against them because OKC helps too fast. Teams can't rely on screens because OKC fights through it and or switches. And teams also can't swing the ball because OKC's off-ball defenders constantly rotate in space. Well, just to be clear, OKC had a phenomenal all-time great defensive season, but NBA players are still far too skilled and too explosive to be shut down for a whole 48 minutes every game. Though my main takeaway here is that what OKC did wasn't about preventing scoring altogether, but rather, it was about stacking every small edge in the defensive end, which eventually translated to a championship. And while no team can fully replicate OKC's defensive system, there are definitely some defensive trends that might have emerged in the wake of the Thunder's success that the rest of the NBA might be able to learn from. First, OKC has emphasized that horizontal rim protection is just as important, if not more important, than vertical shot blocking. Well, we're used to thinking of rim protection as a vertical game composed of blocking shots in the paint, but OKC's model flips that idea, as the Thunder did protect the rim horizontally with gap help and rotations that deny entry in the paint in the first place. For the Thunder, it wasn't about contesting shots at the rim, but it was about making sure that teams never got there in the first place. This scheme, however, only becomes effective and much more valuable when you have bigs like Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein who can hold their own both in the paint and the perimeter. Second, OKC emphasized the value of guards who can do it all, such as Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, and even Isaiah Joe, all of whom are capable of applying ball pressure, fighting through screens, rotating and recovering within a shell, and even containing forwards in the paint. Basically, OKC's defense won't work without this profile of a guard who can close out in space, force bad passes, and recover fast enough to negate advantages. As a result, that level of defensive backcourt play that OKC displayed should now become a blueprint for the rest of the NBA. So expect teams to keep targeting guards to test just how well they can hold up in a shell defense. And lastly, OKC emphasized the importance of versatility in terms of defending ball screen actions. Again, most defenses lean into just one ball screen identity, whether that's drop, switch, or hedge. But OKC defended using all three of those, and what made that sustainable for them was the Thunder's strong personal. If a defender got beat by a ball handler, the next defender was already rotating behind, which is possible because OKC's bigs can survive in the perimeter while their guards can hold their own in the interior. Basically, in a league which heavily utilizes ball screens and advantage creation, the Thunder flipped the math and showed that if your defense can survive even when scrambled, you would be able to limit scoring and you could basically kill an offensive set before it even starts. Again, at the end of the day, this isn't about the rest of the NBA copying OKC's defensive system because that just won't work. But more or less, I think we could expect to see pieces of the Thunder's philosophy showing up elsewhere in the NBA the next couple years, whether it be on the types of players that teams draft or with how positional versatility and defensive IQ will now be given more premium than size alone. Thank you guys if you made it this far into the video, and by the way, I also recently did a breakdown of the OKC Thunder's offense, which you can also find on the channel. And also, if you did enjoy this video, please do me a favor by hitting that like button, and also please consider subscribing to the channel as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.